All right, it's 6 o'clock and I want to call this meeting to order. I'd like to start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Vetter, can we have roll call, please?
Mayor Smith.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Valentine.
Here.
Trustee Stolper.
Here.
Trustee Schwartz. Here. Trustee Bruner.
Here.
Trustee Check.
Here.
Trustee Hunter. Here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Chair, approve the agenda. Second.
Okay.
Discussion?
Actually, no. I'm sorry. We're going to go with the agenda as posted.
I challenge the sufficiency of the agenda as noticed. I challenge the legitimacy of this meeting as called. And I think it's a big mistake not to allow public comment. Thank you.
If you would withhold your opinion, you will learn more. Thank you. Do I have votes? All in favor? Opposed? Okay. One nay. So under actions and presentations for tonight, this is a consideration of notice of removal of trustee William Bruner from the Board of Trustees pursuant to CRS 31-4-307. And I just want to start out by letting you all know that the gravity of the reason for this meeting is not lost on me. But we are here for a reason. And I am going to explain how we will conduct business tonight. And I had to write it out so that I would present it as I wanted. Our purpose here tonight is for the trustees to vote for or against proceeding with the notice of written charges for removal of trustee Bill Bruner from the Town of Paonia Board of Trustees as provided by CRS 31-4-307 and Town Code Section 2-2-10. And in summary, our town code says removal from office by a majority vote of all members of the Board of Trustees. The mayor or any trustee may be removed from office. No such removal shall be made without a charge in writing and an opportunity of hearing being given. The behavior by trustee Bruner over the last 2 months towards myself, staff, and trustees, which is necessitating the written charges, are also a contributing factor to Step and Win, our town administrator, offering the Board of Trustees a letter of resignation on July 29th with 45 days notice as required by his contract. I worked with our town attorney on the drafting of the written charges for removal as I feel this is what's best for the town of Paonia and the Board of Trustees. The written charges are being submitted to the Board of Trustees for public discussion and decision here momentarily. Town Clerk Vetter will provide a paper copy of the written charges to myself and all of the trustees, all of which will be seeing it for the first time. I'll provide time for everyone to read the content, after which I'll ask for discussion from the board. After discussion, I'll open the meeting to public comment. After public comment, I'll ask for any further board discussion, and seeing none, and once completed, I'll ask for a motion to present the written charges to trustee Bruner. If there is a majority vote in the affirmative, the affirming trustees will sign a memorandum of written charges, which will be presented to trustee Bruner after a copy is made for our record. The written charges provide trustee Bruner with a public hearing on August 13th, 2024, if trustee Bruner chooses to exercise his right to a hearing under CRS 31-307 and Town Code. At the hearing, the Board of Trustees will discuss removing him as a trustee under the charges as presented. Otherwise, the Board of Trustees will accept his resignation as trustee on or before August 7th, 2024. So, trustee or Clerk Vetter, would you please hand a copy of the charges to all of everyone, and I'd like to give everybody full opportunity to read the charges and kind of alert me that you've read it, and we can begin discussion. Thank you. Can everyone please stop the discussion in the audience? Thank you.
The public doesn't get a copy?
I'm sorry, not at this time.
You know, that's.
I'm sorry, stop. How are we doing on reading? Are we ready for discussion amongst the board? Who would like to begin any discussion?
I'll begin.
Trustee Hunter?
I do understand the gravity of the situation. I understand that the trustee is elected by the community, and I don't take that lightly. But I believe the board as a body is also responsible for staff in multiple ways. And I think an important part of that is not abusing a position of power and making them feel bullied. I think that's a serious concern.
Yes, Trustee Bruner? And
Sure.
can I, before you speak, I wanted to make one thing clear. I am not going to read what we just handed out. I have no intention of doing that in deference to Trustee Bruner. If you would like to read it to the public, you're welcome to, but I certainly am not going to do that. And I absolutely understand if you.
All right. Well, I'll kind of summarize it here on the fly.
Excuse me, I'd rather you read it verbatim. Please, if you're gonna read it.
It's my choice, Madam Mayor. I have the floor. We can make this as handed out to the Board of Trustees for use in a public meeting and as public record. And
Please,
everyone is welcome to receive a copy. You may cause them to core it, but I'm going to summarize. Okay?
would you like them to have a copy tonight?
Yes,
Yeah.
Can we do
absolutely.
that?
And we want to be able to hear everything you're saying, which we could not do.
Well, maybe if Mr. Bruner sat back down for a second, because it might be hard to hear.
No, the person,
You know what, hang on one second, let me talk to our attorney for a moment. Attorney, what do you think about making this available to the public at this moment? And Mr. Bruner.
I would just read it into record, Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry?
I would just read it into record and then it will become, it is part of public record.
Sorry, I'm going to read the whole thing because I'm not comfortable with you summarizing. That's just the nature of the beast here. So I will read it into the record. Memorandum for Trustee Bill Bruner, date August 1st, 2024. Subject, written charges pursuant to CRS subsection 31-4-307. This memorandum serves as written charges for removal from the Board of Trustees. Charge, harassment, abuse of position. Over the past several months, you have harassed and bullied town staff to include statements and assertions of incompetence and allegations of criminal behavior, all of which are unfounded and have put undue stress on staff and undermines staff ability to efficiently perform their duties. This behavior has been in conflict with the best practices included in formal training for municipal officers provided by SORSA and Resolution 2017-06, Standards of Conduct for Elected Officials, and has also created undue stress on your fellow elected officials. B, on July 24th, 2024, you wrote in the body of a query request, anticipate receiving the same request daily until ADU application is denied. The language in this request denotes personal interest and bias regarding the issue of the query request, which precludes your formal participation in the matter. On July 26, 2024, you followed up on your query request stating in an email that my interest in activity at 215 North Fork extends to my official role as a trustee. The documents you returned raise additional questions. As a trustee, I want to be kept abreast of developments at this location, unquote. However, there has not been any guidance to staff by the Board of Trustees to keep any trustee, subcommittee, or any other party abreast of developments regarding the issue of the query request. This action is a clear violation of CRS 31-4-404 et seq. And exposes the town to possible pecuniary and civil liability. These actions constitute harassment and abuse of authority by a town official. This type of behavior is unacceptable in any capacity, and it will not be tolerated by the town of Hamden and the Board of Trustees. 3, at a public hearing on August 13, 2024, if you so choose to exercise your right to a hearing under CRS 31-4-307, the Board of Trustees will discuss removing you as a trustee under the charges as written above. Otherwise, the Board of Trustees will accept your resignation as trustee on or before August 7th, 2024. So with that, do we have continued discussion?
I have the floor now.
You may have the floor.
Thank you. So, I guess we can get a little specific, but what I want to read here is some excerpts from the controlling case from the Colorado Court of Appeals regarding removal of an elected official. This is from a case in 1899. And it's kind of interesting. It's the Board of Trustees of the town of Gillette versus a guy named Keith, who was the mayor, and he was quite a character. It says that the charges were as follows, and I've shortened this up a little bit, but I haven't changed the meaning. They said that this Mr. Keith is guilty of conduct unbecoming an officer for the following instances: that he refused to recognize on the Board of Trustees 2 trustees, duly qualified members of said board, and permitted 2 other characters to sit on the board and vote on matters submitted to that board. That he declared a certain vote a tie, when in fact it was a 3-2 vote, and then he cast the deciding vote and declared the matter carried. That he violated election law by betting on his own election and refused and failed to file a statement of his election expenses within 20 days from the day of election as required by law, for which the law says he shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor and shall also forfeit his office. And so he was kicked off the board. And what the Court of Appeals said was that even, however, if the charges were sufficient to justify removal from office, it needs no argument to show that this could not be done until after his prosecution and conviction in a court of competent jurisdiction. The Board of Trustees was not such a court. Surely, the contention cannot be supported by either law or reason that the lawfully elected incumbent of a municipal board, of a municipal officer provided for by statute, elected by the votes of the town, voters of the town, can be removed by the Board of Trustees at its arbitrary will and pleasure. If so, the election by the people may as well be dispensed with as a useless procedure, and the board be invested with supreme authority. So I believe that the procedure as laid out here is woefully inadequate. I will not resign.
Hey, Trustee Bruner? keep
I have the floor. I
No,
have
you
the
may
floor,
not.
Madam.
You do not have the floor because I've read your page 2 and I will not allow it put into the record.
I'm sorry, it's not your decision.
Yes, it is.
It is
Sit
not.
down. You may not put it in the record.
Read
Um,
it.
no.
Read it.
Okay,
Okay, all right,
Wait a minute,
all right,
it's
all right.
the
In the matter of keeping the peace,
it's-
allow me to finish, madam, please.
Point of order.
In the matter of keeping the peace, this is
Point of
handed out
order.
to the public. Point of order. I will sit down.
Right, they can read it for themselves. We will not have personal attacks at the meeting, which is one of the
It's
reasons. we're
my
here.
official
That's
opinion.
what you're doing.
So now, any more content, any more discussion from the board? Hearing none? Oh, wait, here, yes, go ahead.
I would like to state, I have sat in meetings and heard trustee Brunner actually accuse people of malfeasance and of incompetence and criminal behavior in board meetings. And we are the employer of Mr. Wynn. And in private practice, as well as government, you cannot make accusations of a employee that is causing a hostile work environment. And we've had this time after time. I probably have been remiss in not admonishing you for that behavior, but I don't have the authority on my own to tell you anything. Everything is done through the town board. We are a team. We do not do things unilaterally. And that's the way it is. And if you cannot get that, or you can't follow that, you can't be part of this board.
Okay, so with that, any more comments from other trustees? I'm going to open it up to the public. I'm sorry, I'm going to open it to the public. Oh, hang on.
I'd like to say that truth, trust, and willingness to act in good faith are necessary for the functioning of the Board of Trustees. And there seems to be inadequate amount of those three elements on this panel. And
Can you speak louder, please?
sure. We're here to formulate policy. We're not really here to engage in personal politics. And so that is just a comment I wanted to make.
Thank you. And one thing I want to say, because I know it sounds unfair, but Mr. Bruner has the ability to have a hearing, and is at that hearing where the details of what has made me so concerned and his rebuttal can be presented. But this is not intended to be a back and forth. We're here to take public comment and for the trustees to decide if they want to vote for the hearing, the memorandum of written charges. So with that, I'd like to open it up to public comment. And let me just give the ground rules. It's the typical 3 minutes. And we have a place to write your name and address. So when you come up to the podium, there's been some concern about having people's full names on YouTube. And I am sensitive to that. So what I'd like to ask you to do is just give your first name and if you live in town or out of town. And then write your full name and address on the sheet. And that would help with, I think that will be okay for meeting minutes. But Suzanne Watson brought this up and I think it's a valid concern. So with that, and Jan, I saw your hand first, please come up. Did I get your name right?
My name is John
John.
Nietzsche, and I live on Lamphorn Road outside of town. But I just have a question. Am I misunderstanding, or was Bill Brunner elected by the people of the town?
There would be no outbursts.
So if he was elected by the people, I think the people of the town should be able to see in print both sides of the story and then let them vote.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I saw the other hand, Mr. Knudsen.
Dave Knudsen, I'm in town. This is really not just for the board, it's for the public.
You might have, I want to make sure that what you are saying is going to get on Zoom. So let me ask, because you're not at a podium, can he, if he's not you really need to be addressing us. That's all I'm saying, so that it gets properly recorded on Zoom. Thank you.
Okay, I hope people behind me can hear me. I'm a citizen now, but for 6 years served on our town board of trustees, finishing my term in April of this year. I joined the board just as our water crisis broke out and worked with 3 town administrators. During the first several years of my service, my fellow trustees, and especially our staff, were constantly subjected to mean-spirited, denigrating attacks. When attending a conference as a local government designee of oil and gas, I was at the table with our Delta County commissioners, county administrators, and local DORA rep. The first question they asked is, "What's wrong with Paylina?" I responded by saying we have a group of very unhappy people who take advantage of our public forum to display their own internal angst. Any idiot can destroy and tear things down. It takes courage to build up and improve, and that's what our board is trying to do. We finished the recreation plan, the housing plan, and our general plan is on the cusp of being adopted. But what I'm most grateful for is the hiring of Stephen Wynn as our town administrator and seeing him bring the highest level of competence and professionalism to our town. His work has elevated the morale, confidence, and competence of our people. Once you're sworn in, you learn a lot about what it takes to run this town. And as our mayor says, even moving from trustee to mayor is a real eye-opener. My hope is that our citizens trust our board to make the best decisions on behalf of all our citizens, purely for the love of the town of Paylina. Let's move forward, not backward. Let's avoid spewing venom based on limited information. Let's appreciate where we are in this very special place with a highly competent staff and the town administrator builds up. A lot has happened since 1899.
I see another hand. Person in a red. Oh, Shereen, I'm sorry. I didn't see it.
I see red a lot, especially at meetings.
Shereen
Shereen Patterson,
Yes, thank you.
Rio Grande. I'd like to point out that before the last election, trustee election, there was a lot of maneuvering by certain trustees, a lot of election interference by certain trustees, a lot of posting illegally, a lot of use of nonprofit funds and services, or actually equipment, let's say.
Shereen, speak up.
Against the election of Bill Bruner. He was handicapped in this case, and he still got his votes to win a seat. And if you're gonna think, any of you, about removing him for something like this, because no, this town is still not running round. It's still not running correctly. And there's lots of obstruction and miscellaneous business being done. And things that should be attended to are falling by the wayside, and everybody knows that. So no, there's not a lot of things improving as yet. And we need Bill Bruner and like-minded people who can see through the garbage that goes on. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw another hand behind Shereen's. Yes.
Pete McCarthy.
So you write your things, thank you. Okay, thanks.
I just wanted to inject, so I'm on the planning commission. I've had some experience between Stefan and Bill as of late on the planning commission. I think it's relevant to what's being said here. I honestly don't hear anything in the charges that make me think that this is warranted. So I do think that a very poor job is being done here to make this case, because I have no idea what's really being talked about here other than the staff doesn't like Bill. I was in the middle of one of those interactions, and I will tell you that at the end of the day, Bill was correct, and the staff member, just being Stefan, said that Bill and another member of the planning commission were forming a shadow government. We had our CIRSA training this week. That falls outside of the bounds of ethical training. That is inflammatory language, which is what I told Stefan at the time. He didn't provide any evidence to why Bill is forming a shadow government. I think that, I hope this would come out at least in a trial, but I think it should be talked about here. No evidence has been given as to why he's forming a shadow government. I think it is a serious charge. If this was a corporation or a business with an HR department, Stefan will be marched down to the HR department. He would need to explain himself. And so I think that he needs to explain himself for that type of incendiary language, especially given these kind of charges that are being made. It's very telling to me that all that happened before any of this happened and the dates that he is using. So this strikes me as like something that needs to be looked at very closely. Thank you.
Thank you. Another hand? Did I see another one? Thad, saw yours first. Sorry, Suzanne, next.
My name's Thad. I'm a home owner here in town, new resident. I voted for Bill. I don't know anything about his politics. I understand there's a lot of contention on the board. That seems normal. But as a citizen, as a voter, I feel like you guys are trying to circumvent my role, trying to participate as a voter and take away my vote. It just seems like any government agency doesn't go about business like this. Maybe he needs a public reprimand, another meeting, but to unilaterally decide that he doesn't belong on the board just doesn't sit right with me.
Thank you. Suzanne?
My name is Suzanne Watson. I live in town. I'm on the planning commission. I hadn't heard of this shadow government, but I think I'm probably the other member. I would like to say that as a member of the planning commission, I've been in the dark to a lot of things. We've had our meetings canceled, our regularly scheduled meetings. I'm the chair. No one has even let me know. The last 2 regularly scheduled meetings were canceled. The statute allows us to requires at least shall hold, the planning commission shall hold 1 meeting a month. Our code says we may hold at least 1 meeting a month, which is permissive, which means we may hold it. We don't need permission from you. We may hold these meetings. I just wanted to get some rules of procedure down. And I was told that I couldn't, after our regular meeting was canceled, with me asking the clerk for this, giving the agenda to the clerk to give to the mayor, it was still canceled. No one consulted with me. There's been such a lack of communication. And then I think, I'm partly responsible for these charges because I know Bill was very upset about the secret email that your administrator sent around to you about me. I heard about it 2 months afterwards, and he was making slanderous comments, accusing me of ex parte. He never came to me and asked me, Suzanne, what's going on? Is this the truth? He made up stories. And then he went to some convention and he made the story as an example of an ethics violation in this little podunk town he lives in. He slandered our town. He made our town look bad. But I take issue with this because no one has talked to me. No one, he has not tried to reach out to me, to contact me. Silence. I know I don't email, but that's no excuse. You guys can send me my utility bill by the mail. I know Ruben has contacted me to let me know of upcoming meetings. So our town administrator does not communicate professionally with the members of the body. And I think the lack of communication has a large part to do with what's happening right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other hands? Anyone else want to come up? Yes, Corleen.
Okay, I understand, the charges can probably be summed up as disrespect. I find it horribly disrespectful for one person to gather a meeting without the other trustees even knowing what was in that correspondence, what was in the charges. I understand Mr. Bruner didn't even know what the charges were. Now, there's signs everywhere. Be nice, be fair. Walk in his shoes. How nice and how fair.
Thank you. Do I see another hand? Yes, Mary?
Mary Backer. I'll tell her that. I have been privy to and watched Mr. Bruner's activities since 2016, when I started. I have been privy to and watched Mr. Bruner's activities since 2016, when I started attending board meetings. He was almost removed from one board when Charles Stewart was mayor because of unethical action. He had defamed and harassed and slandered me in multiple board meetings when I was mayor. This behavior is typical. This behavior goes well beyond what is expected of a trustee. A trustee should maintain the highest personal ethics. A trustee should be at a pinnacle of what a board member should be, what we hold dear in this community. To hold dear the harassment and belittling staff and getting into arguments with the town administrator does not do the whole board justice, and in fact defames the entire board by these actions. I am very gratified that this board has taken, and Mayor Smith has taken the step to say, no, we are not going to put up with this. We are going to be above board, and our actions are going to be in the highest tradition of public service, not the lowest. Thank you.
Any other one? Yes. I'm forgetting your name, Jen. Jen, I saw you were up first. Sorry.
I find it oddly symbolic that you've cut William out of the Zoom. Look at your picture. He's not even here anymore.
What's that? Where? So I am going to answer this. It looks like apparently a camera was unplugged. Can you come and fix it, Ruben?
It's over by Rick.
Oh, it's by Rick. So Rick is on crutches and his foot is in a brace. So you probably inadvertently did it. So thank you for telling us that that was the case, because I've not been paying attention to this screen. Did that fix it?
Yes.
Thank you. Somebody else had,
It's still not in the.
is it still not in?
thing.
Oh, you do? Oh, you have to restart it?
I can check.
Yeah, she has to be, and neither are the speakers in there.
Speakers are not used by the, you're using it by speakers.
Yeah, you mean the. Yeah, oh, no, Jesus, okay. I don't think you know where that foot is.
No. I can't feel anything.
Yeah.
I'm glad Jen said so, because I'm not paying attention to the camera. Are we good, Ruben?
We just have the one, in order to carry the other one, I have to disconnect it.
Oh, we'd have to start over. Okay, our apologies. It was not intentional, but we don't want to start the whole Zoom over again. So sorry. Yes. Anyway. Charles Stewart, I think you had your hand up.
I'm Charles Stewart. I live in town. I served on the board for 6 years, 4 years as mayor. Procedurally, my understanding is that tonight it's about whether the board will issue a notice and actually go ahead and submit the charges to Mr. Brunner. It's not a hearing to determine whether or not, in fact, the charges are true. I will tell this board that the town cannot function without a town administrator. The board is in no position to run the town on a day-to-day basis. This town has lost one town administrator after another. It is terribly important that it keep a qualified town administrator. The behavior that Mr. Brunner is being accused of is very similar to behavior that he has engaged in the past. And as a result, we lost other town managers, town administrators. It seems to me that this is serious enough that it needs to go to a hearing. Because the question is, what are the facts of this particular circumstance? Obviously, you've read the charges. Mr. Brunner has had some limited rebuttal, but who knows exactly what the facts are. And it seems to me it would be wise for the board to go ahead, issue the charges, set the matter for a hearing, and find out what the facts are, and decide whether or not, based upon that, Mr. Brunner should be removed. We have the statutory authority to do that, if in fact there is a basis to do so. But you need to find out what the facts are. If this town can't continue to lose town administrators, it just can't. It's a heck of a process to find somebody else. It's difficult to find somebody else. It's expensive to find somebody else. And in the interim, the town is not functioning properly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to come up and speak? Yes, Christina.
Christina Patterson, Price Road. I appreciate not having everybody agree with everything. Bill Brunner was voted on with hundreds of votes onto the council because of the way he is. God bless him. But, you know, we know who Bill is, but he is a stand for the truth. He stands up and he tells the truth, and he knows the code and he knows the laws. And when something's off, he will speak up. And that seems to irk people. It just gets under people's skin. And when he calls out something that somebody's doing, a staff or anything, yes, could it be more, you know, finessed? Maybe, but he's usually generally right. I know this isn't, we've had trustees in the past, Thomas Markle, Tammy Mack, Michelle Pattison, Paige Smith, and I hope I didn't forget anybody, but that in the last 4 years have stood up and questioned the nonfeasance, and I'm not going to say the other word, but potentially it was, because we all know what happened the last 4 years. And there was some egregious things that happened. And these trustees that I just named stood up for the truth and what was right. And they left, some of them, because they couldn't handle it, because the other majority on the board just didn't care. They just wanted to knee-jerk their way to like consensus. So I appreciate Bill Bruner and I appreciate what he brings, and I appreciate that he has hundreds of people supporting him in town that appreciate what he's doing here. Thank you.
Thank you. I see a hand. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Please come up.
My name's Amy. I live in town. I'm a homeowner. I also voted for Mr. Bruner simply because he's the other side. He's willing to ask the hard questions and not just go along with the tide. And if what he put out, if there was a water tap sold illegally, I'm glad he asked that question. And for the board to try to undo the vote of the public, you're basically trying to undo democracy, and that's wrong.
Thank you. Who else? Anyone else want to come up? All right. On that note, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. I didn't say going once, going twice.
Diane Chenet, I live at 211 4th Street.
You might need to speak up just a little bit for people hearing you in the back.
I only found out about this meeting about an hour ago. And
Speak up, Diane.
okay, I'm here not because I want to argue over facts or differences. I believe we have to work with differences. I've done that politically in other groups I've been a part of, and maybe been the one voice in a whole room full of people who saw things differently than I did, but my voice was listened to. So I think that's important. And I think it's also important how we go about that. And so I want to just bring up the manner in which communication happens and having a means to treat each other with good faith, really, that we don't, that we're humans, we're not perfect. Any system we create is not perfect. Mistakes are going to be made. Every time my husband and I did a construction job, my husband would say to the crews, mistakes are going to happen. What are we going to do when a mistake happens? And I think one of the problems is not in the differences of what needs to be addressed. That may be it, but everybody knows that there are differences that are going to need to be addressed. The question is, how are you going to address them? And are you going to do that in a respectful and a civil manner? We live in a world where that is at stake on so many levels. And I jumped to come to this meeting because I want that in our town.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
My name is Tina. I live in town on Box Elder Avenue, and I hadn't planned on speaking, but in reflecting on what Mr. Stewart had said when he came to the podium, I think there's something maybe worth considering, and that is facts. And while you have outlined with the help of your attorney charges against Mr. Bruner, have those facts listed in that allegation been vetted? Have they been proven? He deserves the chance for a hearing to either prove or disprove those charges. One thing I do want to say is I agree, a town needs a good administrator, and it's been a hot minute since Peonia has had that. I think Mr. Wynn brought some valuable skill set to the table. I'm still not convinced he was the perfect candidate, but he was a good candidate. But the one thing I would caution the board to do is to toss Mr. Bruner off of this board simply because Mr. Wynn's throwing a temper tantrum. I would very strongly discourage that being the motivation for this action tonight.
Thank you. Yes. Linda, sorry, I had trouble getting names.
Linda McCone, 2nd Street. I just want to say that the process of
of looking for and vetting and interviewing a candidate for the position of administrator is one that is turned out this last time around to be very lengthy. We went through 3 different iterations, having to post the job 3 times, which I know you know, and I know because my husband was the other person on the committee, to the personnel committee. When people would be selected or when they would be come and interview and have take a look at what was going on in the town, they would drop out. When they see these meetings on Zoom or on YouTube, or they read the minutes and they hear people calling each other names, people, because Mr. Bruner wasn't on the board at the time, he was in the audience. Well, it's one thing to be in the audience, it's another thing entirely to be a part of the government and to call people names. And I just think that that's wrong. We're going to end up with no administrator. And I think we've already discovered that the Board of Trustees is not capable of running this town by itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to come up? Oh, hang on, Linda, don't rush. Sorry. Would anyone else like to come up to the podium? I see a hand in the back. Sorry, I don't see who it's with. Oh, Frederick.
Frederick Zimmer, 408 Durham Creek Drive.
Speak loud enough. I just want you to speak loud.
Absolutely, nice. I just think it's important to consider the equation. To the last point, it was a lot of work to get an administrator. We've been through, I don't know how many administrators in the last several years. It feels like our administrator's been able to get things moving in a positive direction, and I think we need to weigh the value of him and a board member, and if it's going to be unreconcilable, what's going to be easier to replace? I think that's a real consideration, because if we lose our administrator.
Wow. Stop. No.
Point of order.
Yes, point of, no.
If this town has forever had a problem to try to have productive conversation and have the board make effective decisions. And so part of the point that was just made is there's this constant infighting. So if we have a member of the council that promotes a lot of infighting, it seems like that's an obstacle to progress. And if we have an administrator who seems to be taking us in a positive direction, I think that's a reasonable question to ask. That's my point.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Motivated by, right, I'm going to say last call for coming to the podium. Okay. On that note, as I had said, what I'd like to do is I do not want this to become a back and forth. So I'm going to ask each trustee if they have something they would like to add in terms of discussion, and then I'll ask for the motion. So at this point, I'll ask each trustee if they'd like to make some kind of a closing remark. Trustee Hunter.
I would just like to say that every one of us up here realizes that Trustee Bruner was voted into his position, and none of us take that lightly. But we also have to take staff into account, and that is also important, as has been mentioned by several people tonight. There's also the matter that as the board, we're privy to information that is not public record. And this is not the hearing. There will be an opportunity for a hearing if Trustee Bruner, if we go in that direction and Trustee Bruner requests that. But this is not the place for that. Thank you, Trustee Bruner.
Yeah, that's true. The board is privy to information that is not public record.
Trustee Bruner.
I'm making that public record right now by entering this into the record for discussion at the public meeting here and handing out the copy.
All right, then while he's handing out, he's just, that's, I want to say you forfeited your 3, you get it.
I have not, Madam Mayor. I'm the
this-
only one here who can't express an opinion. Excuse me.
You can, but to be standing up and handing things out, it's sort of indicative. Please go ahead and give us your
Okay.
closing remarks.
If I am guilty of upsetting the apple cart over the last several years, it's because I perceive administrators that are utterly incompetent, who are detrimental to the town.
Sorry, that will point it.
Madam Mayor, it's just a matter of freedom of order. Point of order.
I'm gonna ask, we're gonna have a 5-minute recess.
And then I'll finish speaking.
Do I have a motion? No, wait a minute, trustee Bruno, the reason I said is you may not make personal remarks as a trustee.
I have the right of freedom of speech by the Constitution of the United States, and this is the problem that we have in order.
Argumentative, please sit down. We're gonna have a 5-minute recess just to calm things down. I need a motion?
But I have a motion and a second.
Oh, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'm going to call this meeting back to order, please. And I had said that everybody has each trustee has an opportunity to speak. And Mr. Bruner, you have 3 minutes to say whatever you would like.
Okay, so what I'm going to say is, and you won't have any trouble with me procedurally here. The law on removal of a trustee gives me the right to counsel, to subpoena witnesses, to cross-examine my accusers, and to have a judicial, not a quasi-judicial, but a judicial proceeding in the hearing that you're contemplating for me. I have an attorney that will represent me. He is unable to attend for the next 3 weeks, which is a reasonable amount of time in a judicial proceeding to gather evidence, do discovery, interview witnesses, and prepare my defense. So that's my, I'm going to call it a demand, that I have adequate time to prepare for the upcoming inquisition. So I hope that this hearing will be postponed till the end of August. Thank you very much.
Trustee Schwartz.
Sure. So when I was elected, I didn't go into this role lightly. I take my job very, very seriously. And I think anyone who observes me in meetings knows that I'm not afraid to ask hard questions, especially when it comes to taxpayer money. It's why I serve on the financial committee. It's why every other week I spend 2 to 3 hours looking at every expense, because I want to make sure our town is running properly. And when I was elected, I knew that I would have to abide by Resolution 2017-06. And that's a resolution establishing standards of conduct for elected officials of the town. That's just the agreement we all make when we are either elected or appointed into this position. I too take our elections and our democracy very seriously. And these charges warrant a hearing to learn more. And personally, I am really, really concerned about the amount of taxpayer money that this could result in being spent. This makes me very nervous, especially with the demand that you just presented.
Trustee Valentine?
So all we're really doing tonight is to ask for a hearing. This isn't the hearing. I think everybody gets it. To discover what several members of the public said to hear the facts. So I think that's worthwhile, particularly when what we're talking about here is potentially the creation of a illegal hostile work environment. And that is a reference to the high turnover of town administrators. That warrants a hearing.
Okay, Trustee Check.
When I submitted my application to run for town council, people that I mentioned that to asked me if I was crazy because of the reputation the town council had being contentious, just put it mildly. And I still felt the obligation to try to help the community in any way I could. And I understand why people said that now. And, because of the previous few administrations, I understood that there was a hostile work environment created. And I would hope that we could address that and make our meetings less contentious.
Trustee Stelter?
I feel that because this has been brought up in public, that Bill has a right to rebut these charges, and he should have a public forum for this. This is an opportunity for him to give evidence and make it so that this gets cleared up. At this point, there's a lot of, it's almost innuendo at this point. We haven't shown any evidence, And it should be a public hearing, in my opinion.
Thank you. And I just, Clay, as our attorney, Bill has made the assertion that he is allowed a legal hearing as opposed to what is in the statute. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, the statement that Trustee Brunner made was that he's entitled to a judicial hearing and not a quasi judicial hearing, which I believe is incorrect. The statute clearly states that the Board of Trustees may remove a trustee by majority vote upon written notice and a right to a public hearing. There's no way for the statute to contemplate that the Board of Trustees somehow gets sworn into some sort of formal judiciary in order to have this public hearing. So absent some case law that's recent and or statutory direction to the contrary, which I'm unaware of, the statutory requirement is that the Board of Trustees hold a public hearing upon written notice and upon invocation of his right to a public hearing, which it sounds like he is, and a vote and a majority vote of the trustees. There's no other requirements in statute or case law that I'm aware of. And I can get a better answer for you, but my answer at this point is that's just not a correct statement.
Thank you. So at this point, this would be the time for someone to make a motion if you are so inclined to sign the written charges for delivery to trustee Brunner.
I'll make a motion. Okay. I motion that we have a public hearing on August 13th, 2004 for trustee Bill Brunner, based on the written charges dated August 1st, 2024. That's my statement.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Sorry.
Aye.
Does the public get to speak on that?
No.
Oh, okay.
All in favor of what? Yeah, those opposed? Can you speak? Thank you. All right, that motion passes. And what we will do is I'll have you each sign a single copy of the charges and we will hand we will get a copy of it and give trustee Brunner the original. So with that, Rick, I'll start with you. Does everybody have a pen? Oh, okay.
This could be in court for years.
We all have chocolate. Oh, no, I haven't adjourned the meeting yet. No, I haven't adjourned. That's right. Yes. I'll second. Meeting us at once. If they continue, I should make a copy for everybody. I want the tape.
One side, there's any. I also, yeah. I don't think you're just gonna have. Yes, yeah. So you have a. Yes. Okay, so can you give us the two copies? Yeah, I think. It's very well.
You can, it's gonna the thing is, it's cautious. So we're gonna see if the swelling goes out a little bit. They may get me in, but I'm probably due for surgery.
Has meeting been adjourned?
No, not yet. I wanted us all to have copies before I adjourn.
Madam Mayor, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. I think one thing that I want the board to understand is that the statutory process for the trustee removal that you've initiated is not a criminal process. So there's certain rights implicated by criminal allegations, which do include a right to be tried by a jury of your peers, a right to counsel, and one, of course, would be provided to someone who couldn't afford their own, but et cetera. But in an administrative process, the same rights of due process are not afforded in this capacity. So I think, unfortunately, some of Mr. Brunner's statements are kind of mixing and matching apples and oranges, so to speak, in criminal charges versus and right to a trial and all that comes with it versus the written charge as required by statute and an administrative public hearing as required by Colorado statute. So I just wanted to clarify that for the board so you understood where some of that was coming from and to assuage any fears. I will do my research to make sure that the board gets all the information necessary to answer any questions on a deeper level. But on the topical level of that subject, I think that's where we're at.
Thank you for the clarification. And on that note, this meeting, are you finished, Clay? Was there anything else? No, okay. On that note, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.